Welcome back, everyone. We are at our first session here in the data snow globe, Octagon. And this session is called Applied AI, Navigating Current Challenges to Unlock Enterprise Value. I think we have a couple of really good guests to discuss this topic. I'm going to try and catalyze the discussion, ask some devil advocate questions, press you, but not too hard, and we'll see if we have any novel ideas here that the audience will think is exciting. Let's start off by introducing ourselves a little bit. Please, on this side.
Hi, thanks. So my name is Ted. I'm Field CTO for data integration from Qlik. Qlik, as many people know, is an analytics visualization company, but actually is transformed over the last 4 or 5 years. And I actually come from the acquisition side, from the data integration side of that business. Qlik acquired Attunity and now Talent. So our business is 50-50 between integration and analytics. And in this wave, I mean, you know, the event here is great to see. Everybody is now excited about what is it around Gen AI, how can we leverage that? And really that is, you know, hopefully we'll have this discussion here to understand a little bit more about both using AI internally within the platforms, but also driving those use cases to understand the adoption of those. Really interested to understand the thoughts of people here and share our perspective.
Nice.
Thank you. Well, my name is Andreas Holmgren. I'm a sales executive at Databricks. I think most companies know, or most people know what Databricks is, an open source community. Work a lot with a data science platform. We're an engineering company that has evolved into the Gen AI by acquisitions. Last year we bought a San Francisco-based Mosaic ML. So that's me. Work in the Nordics or in Europe mostly.
Awesome. I'm Conor Jensen. I'm the Field Chief Data Officer for Dataiku. Dataiku is a orchestration platform for developing and deploying analytics, sort of agnostic of your tech. So we sit on top of your data layers and allow people to sort of build whatever the right analytics solution is for the problem at hand. Sometimes your report is fine, and sometimes you need to use Gen AI and everything in between. So been there for 5 years, and I work with customers, sort of advising them on their AI strategy and how they're trying to sort of embrace the technology to solve business problems, and excited to sort of hear everybody else's experience to talk about this here today.
Awesome.
Yeah. Daniel Blomberg, I'm a senior specialist within Data and AI at Microsoft, focusing primarily on the financial industry. So historically, it's been a lot around the data platforms, data warehousing, BI, and so on. The last 2 years have been kind of crazy since we started our cooperation with OpenAI and launched all these AI tools within the Azure platform. So now it's a lot of AI.
A lot of AI everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's dive straight into it. Challenges in unlocking value, navigating through them. A reflection I have is, I came to think of it when when I think about Dataiku and sort of instrumentation that we had available for what we used to call advanced analytics. The topics that have been top of mind in these conferences from year to year have shifted as what's hyped has shifted, and everybody's very excited and eager to say, don't follow the hype or whatnot. But I think one of the reasons these topics are top of mind is precisely because they're not mature topics. So if you compare, database administration, there's we know very well what best practices are for managing a big data platform based on a database. But we don't really know always exactly how to handle generative AI right now. There's Gen AI ops, people are saying, or LLM ops and that kind of stuff. So it feels like it's part of the territory that the reason people are talking about it is because they don't know exactly how to do it. And we're here to assure them that we know exactly how to do it. So what do you think are the current challenges and how do we navigate them correctly?
Cool. Well, I think I split it into 2 distinct areas. One is from the business side, line of business, and whether or not they're traditionally using BI analytics tools to extract value out of data. And you're not expecting all of your business to be experts on LLMs and understanding what a RAG application is or understanding that side of the business. So you want easy enablement for the business to be able to actually consume some of this technology, which is the aim of training, enablement, but also just the platform side. But actually, Gartner at the end of last year at Symposium said that they did a survey, there's 6,000 CEOs, CIOs, and only 4% CIOs said that they were AI ready. Their data is there, these foundational layers. And here, it's not a rip and replace. It's not as though you're completely throwing away everything you may have done within a warehouse, a lake house, but it is an environment to bring together these two sides to the business. And specifically around building out this AI foundation is critical. You need to be able to understand all of your unstructured data. LLMs love emails and manuals and documents and sentiment analysis and things like that.
Is there a hierarchy to this stuff? I mean, so you have lots of things that are the challenge. What is the big one that's right in front of people?
I think it is an AI. For me, I'm an integration side rather than a business, and that is that AI-ready stuff. And there are two parts of that that are critical. It's understanding both bringing the data to train your models, and then bringing the context of your data out of your mainframes, out of Oracle, out of SAP, so that you have real-time data accessible to that. The only time I ever interact with a chatbot is when I buy something, when I book a flight, when I have a policy. You need to then to have that context to within that. So they're the parts. So it's a foundational layer to bring the right data to these platforms.
Right.
And then you've got these great companies that are building these modern platforms that can then extract the value out of that.
Right.
They're the two sides of the business that we really are seeing most people engage with.
I'd like to hear your experience. Yeah, I've been saying for a while now that training models is not so interesting anymore. Even fine-tuning is something that we're not going to be doing super much of in the future. I think it's only necessary now because the models aren't quite refined enough. What proportion of customers are actually using this stuff versus doing researchy and trainy and super, things that require distributed computing and that kind of stuff? And I don't mean like the kinds of models that need a little bit bigger instances. I mean like training modern AI. And by modern AI, I'm really just talking about LLMs and the diffusion models and like the big ones.
Going back to, echoing a bit what Ted was saying here, and also, it's a great question. It's like super big, right? Not my question, but the entire discussion is that, of course, it's a huge challenge for organizations to start looking into how to become efficient using AI, right? But what is really driving in this is efficiency, right? It's getting top line growth, getting better margins. That's what's really driving the AI business. Really, can we replace a call center by getting a chatbot? Can we accelerate testing on pharmaceuticals from 3 years to 3 weeks? Because that drives AI discussion. The other part I was thinking about as well, I see a lot, is organizations that have a central data platform or have centralized organizations, they tend to have better success than to have more of a Nordic culture where everybody is, decentralized.
Let's say it again. So you're saying companies that have a sort of a center of excellence manage to make progress faster?
Yeah.
And is that dependent on the size of the company?
I would say that, if you have
the maturity of the AI initiative?
I would say it's more about the organization of the company. If you have you can take an example. We have a compressor manufacturer in the Nordics, right? It has 200 different organizations or business entities. How are they going to build an AI model that covers those 200 entities, right? Well, you go down to the government, the tax authority, famous tax authorities in Sweden, they have it all, lock, stock, and barrel, centralized storage. It's a lot easier building an LLM model on centralized than when it's distributed. And I think that is the challenge the organizations face when they say we're going to increase margins, top line growth, is, where is the data?
Yeah.
Right? And that's where, we need our eco community and partnerships with Dataiku, Qlik, and Microsoft, is to be able to help these organizations structure themselves on people and process.
Yeah.
More than just getting the tech out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's super interesting. I want to hear your reflections on, you gave an example now, which is a very typical example of the kind of projects that companies tend to start with. They'll start with like replacing a call center or something like that with maybe some kind of agent. But the values that you were saying, like increasing profit margins or maybe, growth of the company, seldom has anything to do with the call centers. So they're always running projects on stuff that's ultimately, maybe like operational efficiency, but really doesn't have anything to do with the company itself. I mean, in your experience, is that not an insurmountable challenge, but like, is that where the challenge is?
Yeah, so I think that like the way that I've heard this articulated best is that managing your sort of portfolio of projects is more like being a VC than being a bank, right? Because with AI, I see companies fall into one of two traps very frequently. One is exactly that, like we're going to focus on operational efficiencies, we're going to focus on things that like we know we'll be able to achieve, but the margin is small, right? And frankly unsexy, right? Like you go back to your investors and you say, this is what we did, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, right, there's only so much you can say.
You can't get rid of everybody.
The other side is sometimes people only say like, we're going to do these massive moonshot projects, right? And in 2 or 3 years, we're going to have this really cool AI that we built for you that A, only has a low probability of success, and B, takes so long to get a return on that like everybody just sits around waiting for something to happen. And really, you can't do either or, you need to be doing both of those, right? You have to have like the big ambitious projects that really like take advantage of the breadth and the power of AI that people get excited about, but that also will take you time to get there while you do the operational things that pay the bills, right? So it's like you have to show return on the investment as quickly as possible. You can't keep saying in a year we've got something coming, we've got these cool things, but you also just can't do these you can't cut infinitely, right? There's only so much that you can cut down.
I think that's a really good point. I actually should have a pen here to take some notes. I want to ask you, like, in terms of timelines for these kinds of projects, what are reasonable and good timelines to actually not guarantee value, but you know, like ERP projects. There are some ERP projects that run for so long that your grandpa's retired by the time they finish. Like that stuff's not cool either, but...
Yeah, I mean, from the discussions here, my view is a little bit... I mean, there are great small AI projects, and we have to remember that AI is not new. AI has been around for a long time. It's generative AI that's new.
Yeah.
So companies that have worked for a long time in becoming data-driven, they are in a good position for utilizing Gen AI even more, versus the companies that are still in a very legacy setup, a lot of depth in their environments. For them, it's hard to do this big use case where you're looking at your core processes. If you have a big factory and your machines are not even sending signals, what should you do with AI? But I think what we're seeing right now, or at least that I see, is a lot of stuff around customer. I mean, we're talking language models. Language models do not make factories more efficient. They make people more efficient. So of course, most of the projects right now are focused around interaction in somehow. So could be a bot to replace a call center, could be a bot to make the call center staff more efficient. I would say that's more common right now. But you need these small projects. You need to train. You need to see your organization has to learn how to use AI before they can go on these really advanced journeys. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, toe dipping.
What about timelines? The ones that are like you described, that have this sort of advanced analytics maturity.
Yeah.
What are reasonable timelines?
If everything else is in place, you're allowed to use the data. You have your cloud platform in place. So imagine that. I have seen projects go from idea to production in 2 days. And then there are other places where you get stuck with legal for 3 months before you can even touch the AI studio. So, but technically, this is quite easy.
Okay, well, no, I understand where you're coming from, because I have this one finance customer where half the team is building stuff from scratch with open source tools, and half of them is using Microsoft. And with Microsoft Cloud stuff, you just press go, and it all just sort of works. So if you want, RAG with keywords and a vector database and automatic indexing of the data lake, blah, 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 you just press go, and it just sort of works.
Yeah, it's like 7 clicks in the AI studio.
Yeah. But then it's all in one place, too. So it's like pros and cons, but still. Okay, so I guess 2 days is on the low end. In your experience, I mean, what kind of timelines do you sort of see as... Look, because what we want to have is set reasonable expectations in these sort of challenges where people are like, no, this is a multi-year project. We need to have AI product managers. We need to have an ethics committee in place. We need to, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, for sure. The word governance is, we're going to see a lot of mistakes made over the next 6 months, a year, where people accidentally deploy an app somewhere that is doing something. That will happen. There will be some nice headlines that the media will jump all over. But it comes back to use case. It does come back to use case, and I like using it's a Gartner sort of radar of understanding the use case, which is like a radar with east and west. Is it an internal use case and that external use case, and is it sort of internal processes, or is it game changing? So if you look internally as an organization, and you just can see that your order to cash teams are taking a week to generate an order of things, that's something that you can just spin out and have a look, build a project team on to understand, can we do something around that? That's just going to make yourself internally running a bit of your business more efficiently. But can you do the sort of the game-changing top right? Gartner likes top right things to say that it's good. Things that are changing the industry, changing your organization completely, and that's going to take a little bit longer to roll out something like that.
Give me a ballpark figure. How long is that?
That's going to take a year. It's changing the culture of an organization. Those types of projects are changing everybody in the organization to think in a different way, to use data in a different way, to drive a different experience towards an organization. Are you a Blockbusters, or are you a Netflix, or are you a Betamax, or are you a VHS? These are changing technologies.
Okay, but then
But
when
the
you have a
stuff, you can get wins. You can get the phrase quick win is never really quick, but that you can get done in a matter of months to drive change internally.
I'm going to sort of push this in one direction here, because we have a large span. We have 2 days and we have 1 year. And I feel like in 1 year, that's long enough for people to sort of forget why you even started the project to begin with.
Yeah.
I think there's a sweet spot around 3 months. I'm wondering, sort of, in your experience, are customers able... One of the things that I'm telling customers now is that you need to practice specifying your problem, the success criteria, and all that kind of stuff. And I sort of think it's different for Gen AI than it's been for previous stuff, because it can solve such diffuse and abstract problems that we're not really used to specifying those things in explicit terms. For instance, I asked teachers at school what the point of school is. And one teacher was like, it's to teach kids how to read and write and do math. And the other one's like, no, it's to prepare them for life. And the third teacher had a third answer. Of course, if you're not aligned on that kind of abstract stuff, you're not going to be able to have a product that sort of heads in the same direction. So do you find that customers are able to make these minimum products that are valuable, but that don't take a year?
Another really good, broad question here. If I look at the fields I'm working in, I think there is a general problem of there needs to be an upskilling event happening at the companies. I think there is if you go to a timeline, 3 months or 1 year, if we bring in an army of consultants, they do the work for you, you give them full access, they can get it done in 3 months. When they leave, you're going to take care of it. I mean, I think we oversimplify the Gen AI, going back to Microsoft saying here, it's been around for a long time, but what is maintenance? Who's going to take care of it? We don't have upskilled our staff, and we launch these projects. Once they go into production, I mean, they're not standalone. I mean, they require maintenance, they require development. I mean, there's a lot of bug fixing. And I think, with where we're going is we're trying to create this machine learning, self-healing type of networks, applications, in order to get out of the problems where we can't upskill. And that's going to take a while. But I think you start going back is setting the expectations right, realistic expectations. You upskill your staff, you accelerate that with system integrators, and you use an open source platform. Success can be achieved.
This is echoing what we just spoke about a moment ago, the fact that organizations that are mature in some of the terminology and the ways of thinking, that they are more poised to take advantage of this stuff more readily. It's not clear to me necessarily that the upskilling is purely a technical thing. It could be a collaborative thing as well, like sort of like the example I gave of the teachers, where being able to specify what it is that you expect and want is something that needs to be practiced. What kind of upskilling do you feel is really the one that is missing most often?
So I think in terms of this, the maturity side and the upskilling here, I think that there's actually sort of like a meta level problem of it's not just that organizations are immature, it's that sort of data science and AI is also immature, right? So if you look at sort of like what those best in class sort of processes for identifying a problem, scoping out how to solve it and implementing, like there is no agile yet for data science. There isn't, like, we're not at a place as a community where this is the standard sort of process, right? And there's ideas around it. There's things like crisp DM and other sort of ideas there. But so, like, that sort of leads to, I'd say, like, the first gap in most organizations that from an upskilling perspective is finding those people and upskilling a core group of people in your company that can say, hey, here's our business strategy and opportunity we're trying to get, or here's our problem we're trying to solve. And I can translate a business problem into an analytics problem and identify the type of model, the type of data, the type of solution that we can actually create.
What is the name of the role that does this again? I mean,
Hell if I know, right? Like,
yeah.
I haven't found a good name for it yet.
So,
I've heard a lot
yeah,
of different ones. Analytics architect or data translator or whatever. I think all the names suck, unfortunately, and I don't have a better one. So like, at some point we'll get it. Maybe the closest thing that I will say is sort of like a data product manager. And I actually like the idea of thinking of it from a product manager perspective, because I think early on, most times this would be called like a project manager.
Yeah.
And then it's brought a very sort of like IT lens to that, which I don't think fits, right? Because like managing the creation of data product is still a lot squishier than it is to sort of build like an IT project and sort of
I got a
define
name for it. Consultant.
I don't think the consultant one works either. So, but I think so. Data product manager is sort of maybe the closest, or maybe AI product manager if we want to be sort of a little more specific.
but they would be a little bit different, though, right?
It is
because,
a little
the cool thing about an AI product manager, and I like that title, because there has to be a roadmap. There has to be how much are we willing to pay for these features to maintain them? When do we sunset them? How do we measure that the thing is doing what it's supposed to be doing? There's quite a lot of
when do you
product-like
build, when do you
facets.
kill? And that's because, and I think the challenge here that is really nuanced compared to sort of software development is that once you've trained an AI model and you deploy it, it gets worse every second that it exists, right? An AI product is a map of some sort of underlying reality, like via math and statistics, but reality changes. And so, you deploy a piece of software code, and that code will work until somebody changes something else in the system and it breaks. You deploy an AI model, and it will keep working long past when it should continue to work, because like the parameters under which it was built have sort of moved on. And so we have to think about these continuously, and these are the pieces that sort of like that like framework doesn't really exist. So this to me is that like core upskilling gap, and it's not a enterprise wide. You don't need everybody. I mean, the more people that understand this, the better. But like there is this sort of like core gap in a skill set that you've got the business folks and you've got like your sort of your data and AI folks, and the like bridge between them. As much as we've acknowledged that this is a gap for over a decade, it's still a gap, and we're still not there.
I feel like we've really touched on one half of the main issue here with regards to upskilling, which is that we need to have these roles that have these skills that you just described on the business side. On the tech side, I want to ask you, we've been hiring recently, and in my experience, entrepreneurs have been the ones that have done the best on the technical interviews, because they're forced to do everything, right? You're just a one-man army having to solve everything. And I'm very disappointed by people that have PhDs in AI that don't know how to serialize data over a network. Okay, you're going to send some binary stuff between two computers. How do you do that? Oh, I have people that do that for me. Like, I think that's why data engineer now is becoming more popular than data scientist, because the rubber's got to hit the road and you got to get work done. Yeah. In your experience now with people that are on Azure, everything's easy, but even so, what types of technical competence, not necessarily technical skills, but like, it could be LLM ops and that kind of stuff. Like, what kind of competence do you feel is missing, or perhaps has been most successful in the projects that you've seen sort of go the furthest, the fastest?
Good question. Building on what some of my colleagues here said, I think there are some stuff missing, definitely. The projects that has been successful one of the key roles in such a project is definitely a data engineer. That's needed. But at the same time, when we start working with generative AI and LLMs, getting the data there is one thing, make sure they have the right data. But then, of course, you need the business side, because are we getting the answers that we want out of these application? So you need business people and doing a lot of prompting to say, okay, now it's behaving as we want it to behave, and then you need to test it some more to see. So it's impossible to do a really good AI project from the IT department. I mean, you have to have the business people in there as well. So getting close to it, I would say, if you're used to working in a DevOps fashion, real DevOps team, where you do everything in the DevOps team, that's a pretty good setup for an AI project as well. But you might change a little bit in the team, but you need all those roles, because, as you said, it's operations of these models, it's quality of these models, it's data in and out, and business. So you need the same kind of setup with this DevOps team, but with an AI flavor, perhaps.
Right. I just, actually, this is one thing that's not easy, not even just not on Microsoft, but because the domain is difficult in general. You know, I still feel that there's technical hurdles where having somebody that is a little bit good at everything is able to manage that stuff. For instance, handling security tokens with a Microsoft authentication layer, passing them between things to make sure that row-based security is enforced. It's one thing in you guys' platforms, because everything just works. You're logged in, and it all works. But as soon as let's say somebody wants to have like a vector database. I know you guys are having some cool vector database type stuff coming soon that's going to be built in. But let's say somebody wants an external vector database, and they want the authentication token to be passed from Databricks into that. I mean, that's not the kind of stuff that an AI PhD knows. No. That's like network level stuff. And I do think people get stuck on that kind of stuff. That's why I said that I think that the upskilling for the business side needs to happen, but there is also like an upskilling on the technical side. And you know, we used to talk about these unicorn data scientists that used to be able to do everything, and we found out that they're few and far between. And then we also realized that maybe the data engineer is more important than the analytics person in the end.
I think we're touching upon this you know, if we take I'm a big fan of the sort of data as a products methodology and a sort of data mesh sitting on top of data fabrics, and take away technology for a minute. You know, I'm working with Databricks, Snowflake, Google, Amazon, you know, the underlying technologies are there. But the business needs to be, you know, to take that and then build this methodology of a product. Within it has all these components, has pipelines, has quality, has assurance, has life cycle within it. Really like that it says that data isn't just, okay, here you are delivered and you walk away. You know, there has to be some ownership within that. So the idea
Are we talking about on a sort of technical ownership or business function
there has
ownership?
to be business, has to be line of business, has to take some ownership in others. But then the missing part that I often see is that you get really, really great successes. I mean, amazing projects and products, as it were, but they sit then again in silos. And this is the worst thing. You know, we've been talking about silos for 20 years and about those. So the next part I think that I'm enjoying and understanding whether is having sort of internal KPIs, internal marketplaces where people can truly say, look at my product that I've built. And you have product owners from the risk team, from the compliance team, from the sales, from marketing, who then come on and do show and tells, come things like this. Because then everybody knows in the organization that, if you need that, you know, go and talk to John. He's got a spreadsheet. He's got an, you know, and that's the sort of the starting points of using data better.
Yeah.
Once you get that, and again, it's culture. It's not technology. We're all technology vendors here, but it's not. It's a cultural thing that you can break these silos within this to share data, to use data better, and then, you know, all of a sudden, that data product construct grows and is successful, and is just and that goes on to that next level of, and it's the same methodology if it's a warehouse, if it's a lake house, is it Gen AI, it's just. But I still think that cultural part is the part that we're still.
But this really echoes, you're talking about composability between things and sort of getting synergy effects of separate projects. That's something that we've been talking about for quite a while. Like in Databricks, the data catalog is something that just is really awesome, and not a lot of people use as much as they should because they treat sometimes Databricks like either a database, and it can do lots of other stuff than just be like a fake SQL database. But it's going to be the same thing with Gen AI, I feel. Like, imagine you have a vector database that indexes lots of stuff from around the company. So now the LLM knows things from other departments than your own and should be able to sort of synergize. But it's not evident based on history that it will break down silos. Do you think that it's going to be different this time, or do you think it's going to be the same thing?
That's a tough question. Because I want to echo a little bit what Ted was saying here, right? Or Ted, right?
Yep.
Right. I mean, we're all technologists, but I'd like to take a approach like a synergy for this. You're going to build a house, right? So what do you do when you build a house? You get yourself an architect. You need permits. You definitely need a statement of work, right? And then you're going to have budget. And then when you get all those pieces together, you have some kind of a kickoff. So everybody can go out and get chop. So when you go and see your newly built house, you see the plumber on the driveway having his hands in his pockets. First thing you think is, this guy's costing me money, right? So you're going, well, so what are you doing today? There's no pipes. So, but you're still paying for my hourly wage. When we look at data and AI, it's much the same way. We have all these great ideas. We have all these, expectations, but we don't do the initial groundwork. We don't get, the teams around. What is the strategy? Who's going to be doing the tactics? We're going to go open source. We're going to go Databricks. We're going to have a layer from Dataiku on top. We're going to run it on Azure, and we're going to have some really good Power BI stuff, on dashboards. But I think what happens is that there is a miscommunication from the boardroom to the data engineer. The layers in between there, they don't talk to each other because they're in silos and they don't have this, go-to-market plan. And that's where I think we as vendors need to help them upskill and get that into production.
Right.
Can I have a short comment?
Go ahead.
You specifically talked about now this vector database and getting all the data in there to break down silos. I think what I've seen so far, at least, is that in particular with Gen AI and LLMs, it doesn't really work. Because if you train on a specific scenario, so you use the vector database to get less tokens into your model, basically, to make it cheaper and faster and so on. So if you have your specific scenario, let's say you have 200 documents that you want to search from, and you do your prompting and everything works really good, so you're really happy with the result. And then you take the next department and you start adding their data into the vector and their prompts. All of a sudden, the first department doesn't get the same results. So, no, I don't think this will break down silos. This will create new silos because everyone needs their own solution in some cases. And the more you put in there, the crappier results everyone gets.
Yeah.
So a lot of these AI implementations will be very specific for a specific task.
But I think we're fine now that the cloud. You're only paying for compute anyway, so it doesn't matter that you have you have one RAG application for marketing and one RAG application for chatbot and one RAG application for risk and compliance, because the underlying the LLM itself has been trained on your corporate data, but you just bring, let's say, a flavor of RAG for each of the use cases.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost the business anymore.
We're getting lots of technical advice here, which I think is really great. If you think it's expensive to hire a pro, wait till you hire a bunch of amateurs, right? We're all building the ship while we're sailing it here, and everybody has an opinion on RAG and how it should be done. I think one piece of advice, I would like to have everybody's sort of last word on how to pass the great challenges facing us in Gen AI. I'll start. My piece of advice is if you want something done successfully, the best predictor of future success is past success. So don't pick somebody that talks a lot about AI. Pick somebody that has like a long track record of multiple sort of easily expressible projects behind them. And that's a good predictor of whether they're going to be able to do future projects of that type. what do you have as advice for people that want to get started on this weird Gen AI journey and see only obstacles in front of them?
Look, honestly, it is trust your teams in order to, we love hackathons or process or have innovation in trust your employees in order to get started. Then take it away and pull those out and build the projects that are going to be, going to take a different sort of revenue-wise. But the biggest thing we see is that organizations often are stuck in the way in which they're working and just doing the same things. Actually, if you ask your employees what you're doing and how, everybody probably has an idea of what they can do. Doesn't matter that they're a lowly person or high, it doesn't have to be top down or bottom, but just go out and explore your employees first and ask their opinion of what they can do. Because everybody is a data professional now. They may not have that title, and then take it on and build those projects that make a difference.
All right, what do you say?
I think you said it. Get people that have past experience on success, and I think that's it. I sold and implemented 35 help desk systems in the Nordics. I failed miserably. Why? Because it wasn't a technical issue. It was an organizational problem.
Well, just to give you kudos, this is one thing people underestimate. Failures are a very strong predictor.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully that you've learned, failures are a really good thing.
Yeah. And one thing I always heard, it was a lot better before.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To echo that last point around sort of like the failure points, right, is, we started off this saying like, what are the challenges that we've seen and like, how do we solve them? And I don't think we know, right? I don't think that the path forward is entirely clear. I think one, the space is immature, and two, the technology is changing faster than any other sort of technological space that we've ever tried to adapt to, right? And so I do think that it is identifying how do you quickly adapt. And this is hard for corporations, right? Especially IT departments aren't used to this sort of like the fail fest mentality, right? And I think that like you can go too far in that direction, but sort of trying to find a healthy balance there. And so I do think that sort of like having that culture that allows you to say, hey, this is working or this isn't working, and we're going to ditch it and we're going to move on, where corporations have a hard time sort of saying, okay, sunk costs, we're done, drop it and let's move on. I think that can be a huge impactor on your ability, because you're not going to find success on the first project, or maybe the second project, or maybe the third project. But like the faster you can cycle through those, the more likely you are to find those big successful approaches, those big projects, and that.
I wholly agree. What do you say?
At this Data Innovation Summit, I love it because every year there's a new page, I don't remember who gives it out, showing all the vendors within the data AI space, and it's just growing every year. I don't know how many pages you're going to need this year to show it even. So my best suggestion is choose an ecosystem. I mean, if a couple of years ago everyone talked about Hadoop, that was the cool thing, that was AI then. And in the end, people were spending more time configuring and maintaining their Hadoop clusters than building ML models. And I think that's the scary part now. You got thousands to choose from. So if you do your old cherry-picking style, you're going to be in data integration projects instead of AI projects. So just pick an ecosystem. Of course, it's easy for me to say which one, but there are at least 3 big ecosystems, like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. Stay within that ecosystem. Use the PaaS services, the SaaS services, because your AI project is not technology, it's processes, it's business value. So stick with your ecosystem. The best PaaS service today for AI is going to be shit in 6 months. So don't invest millions of hours in becoming good at learning a little component, because tomorrow it's trash. So keep it easy.
I think this was really good closing words, where generative AI is not a technology, it's a process.
I like that.
We're learning while we're building. And I think one thing that even though you might invest a lot of money and fail on projects, if your organization is set up to learn things from that failure, it might not be an entire failure.
Yeah.
I guess you just don't want to build yourself into a corner too deeply.
Yeah,
so,
and you want to spend your hours on the actual
yeah.
AI, the process that you're solving, not the technology behind it, because that's going to change anyway.
Yeah. Guys, this has been a great panel.
Likewise.
Our time
Thank
is
you.
up.
Thank you,
I
Robert.
think we got
Thanks,
some
gentlemen.
really wise insights. I hope the audience enjoyed it. We'll be back in just a moment with another exciting session. See you around.
Thank you.